because a number of the people that are on here were there last Sunday when we ran, I would hope that those that were there would help me out on this and tell about their experiences. I know Greg was there, and I didn't check and see everybody that's on here. I know that Alan has done some, if he cares to talk about it a little bit. And let's see who else, Ron Jelson, and there's Dan. And I'm not, if I'm missing somebody, when you get to it, please leave your audio on. And if I get to some place that you've been, please talk about it. Okay.
Will do.
Now all I got to do is figure out why I can't advance. Okay. I thought I ought to bring the map up one more time. I mean, basically, he starts out at Detroit, going west to Battle Creek. And of course, if you've ever looked at a map of Michigan, that's exactly the way this is. And then he's got a line up to Grand Rapids and another line down to Toledo off of the Albion area. So then a little refresher on staging. Battle Creek is the west end of the layout. And at that point, a lot of staging is done. He literally will move cars so that they are in the proper positions. And of course, he has to move the locomotive and the caboose. You know, that's all done by the old I-5, by hand method. In Fort Wayne, that's the route to the east, and it becomes staging for all the eastern roads. And again, cars are moved around, locomotives moved around, and so forth. Now, Grand Rapids is on a circle under the layout, and you can get 2 or 3 trains on one of the loops. I think could be 3 loops there. And but nothing is done to those trains because they might be 3 trains on a loop. You can't reach it in there because it's totally covered. Ann Arbor, the CNO, and the DT&I are also hidden stagings, and they have room for a train or 2 in Ann Arbor. The other 2 is just room for 1 train each. So they're really truly staging areas. So the train schedule is on 1 sheet of paper, but it's so long, I could not get it in my scanner. So I had to break it up into 3 pages. So this page has 37 trains on it. And I think this is the beginning of the schedule. And if unfortunately on my end, I got something on top of it, but I think it says Fort Street. The next one down is the Ann Arbor local. A comment on a couple of these. If you see something that doesn't make sense, maybe I can comment on it. Fort Street is actually a train that starts out at the Detroit yard and moves to Fort Street. Ann Arbor, though, is a town where when you operate, you pull a locomotive and cars out of the hidden track, and you start to do all of your setouts and pickups and so forth like that. The third one down is a passenger train. So that Fast Mail East is a passenger train. I do think I've got something wrong here because the 4th train down is the Fort Street Industrial Turn. Maybe somebody.
And the top one is Ford Rouge Ore.
Okay. Jerry was running that. That's a big long ore train, and we will see a picture of that. And that comes out of staging and moves to the steel plant. So as you see on the left, he writes your name down so he has an idea who has run the train. And on the right, he just keeps a little log there of the people that are there. This particular sheet has 37 trains on it. This is the rest of that sheet, and it has 30 trains on it. And there's a number of passengers down at the bottom. There's also another one that says the Fort Street Barge Turn, which is 12 cars. That's how many it would handle. So there are several trains to the same location, but the way they're spaced out, they never get there at the same time. All right, this is the back page, and it has 29 trains for a total of 96 trains. Now, and there's no way you can run 96 trains in 4 hours. Sometimes we set records of having 30 some trains run. A lot depends on how much, how many trains get together at the wrong place. We don't dispatch. So consequently, it's not unusual to have 3 trains in the same area at the same time. People have to back up, get out of the way and so forth like that. That all takes time. And also the back aisle is narrow enough that if somebody's working Albion, it's a little difficult to get by that area. Now he has a list here of the locomotive schedule, and he has a hostler. And just taking the very top one up there happens to be the Fast Mail East, which is a passenger train. And the locomotive is number 78. I'm not sure what the S is. I don't have the answer for that.
Probably
And the
sound.
next one
maybe.
down, Fort Street Industrial Turn is 617. Somebody had an answer for the S.
I thought it might be sound, but most of the
Steam.
Oh, steam. That's it. Yeah. That's probably it.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, somebody told me once when I was up there that the S was for steam.
Yeah, if I look down to the DB 105 through freight, Detroit to Battle Creek, it's number 47 with an S on it. And I'm sure that being a through freight, it probably does nothing along the way. Now, there's a lot of these trains you might call way freights, and a lot of them go directly from a yard to a particular industry. There are some, and we'll get into some other way freight stuff as we get along if I don't forget it. Does anybody see anything on there that they might want to ask about? Now, the 2 guys that work the yard both have a list telling them exactly what trains to make up and when to make them up. And although I did not copy that list, they definitely have that. So this is the passenger train list. There's 30 passenger trains. Now that's not in addition, because the other list has all of these trains on it. But I've been handling MUT for several years now. And let me tell you, it's a full-time job. Sometimes I think we could do a better job if there were 2 of us. We don't do as good a job with moving Pullmans from one train to another as I think we should. So every train that comes in, with exception, they are generally broken up, taken to the storage area, and then they rebuilt when their time comes to scheduled out. And you can see all the A's being arrivals. Like the top one is the Fast Mail East. It leaves Battle Creek, and there is no time limit. It'll get into MUT sometime, maybe 20 minutes after it leaves Battle Creek. At about the same time that it leaves Battle Creek, there's the Flexi Van West, which leaves MUT. So you can see there's something going on all the time. I don't think, I'm not sure if Jerry is on here or not.
Is this operated by a fast clock?
No.
Oh.
We do not operate by any clock. Dwayne had a dispatcher many years ago, and he felt it just became too complicated and decided it was just more fun without one, and we would do a Mother May I type system. And the way he has a train scheduled, you don't have a lot of meets, provided you watch your signals, because the signals are occupancy signals. So let's talk about a train at Mutt. So these are the cards. You have a card for the Owl West. It's going to leave Detroit Mutt, depart for Battle Creek staging. At Jackson, it's going to set out 2 N&W Pullmans at the station. At Albion, it will combine with the Fort Wayne section of the Owl and proceed to Battle Creek staging. At that point, you'll have 2 operators, 2 locomotives. They'll put the train together. The locomotives, of course, at the front and the passenger cars behind. It'll terminate in Battle Creek. Now, when its time comes, it'll leave Battle Creek. It'll depart for Mutt. And again, you have the work done at Albion, where the 1 section to Fort Wayne gets cut off and goes to Fort Wayne. In Jackson, they're going to pick up the 2 N&W Pullmans, and it's going to terminate in Mutt. On the backside of the west one, or actually the backside of the east one, is the cars that the man who puts the train together has to put together. So first of all, he has an observation he's got to put out there. Then he puts on the 2 N&W Pullmans. He's got a diner. We prefer New York Central 109, doesn't always happen that way. And then there's a Pullman from train number 6 and an engine 26. And all of the passenger trains have cards like this. You'll have a card leaving staging and a card leaving Mutt. On the back one side of the Mutt card, you'll see how to set it up. That makes sense to anybody? So we'll continue here with talking about Mutt. At the beginning, we talked about a FlexiVan West train. And here you see, let's see, I guess I can get the cursor going. Here you see I'm pulling that train out. There's a caboose stuck on the end. And I will pull this out around the corner and back it up underneath the train shed here. And this will tell you what happens. It leaves from Mutt and it'll go to Battle Creek staging. At Jackson, you're going to drop off and pick up 2 cars. It's next to the piggyback cars. In Albion, you're going to drop off and pick up 1. At the Battle Creek station, there is a station under the layout. You got 1 there also. And then you finally end up in the passenger side of Battle Creek. Battle Creek has a freight side. We talked about the other day. I did not put that picture back in. And it has 4 tracks on the Mutt side for passenger trains. So here I am pushing some of the REA cars back into the REA building. And there again, we could do a better job of that. Every REA car has a waybill. And properly done, the waybills should be changed so that you know how that car is shuffled from one area to another. And it does go from town to town before it gets back to Mutt. You also see an RDC car here. There's quite a few RDC trains. There must be 4 of them, if I recall right. Now, this one is train number 16. You're seeing it pass the Ford truck plant. And at this time, it's going from right-hand running over to the single track. There's a signal right beside the engine. And again, it'll be, goes from Battle Creek staging. This is one coming to me. And it'll drop off and pick up REA express cars. It's siding next to the freight house and pick up the baggage car. In Wayne, it'll drop off and pick up the REA express cars at the station. There's lots of passengers work in this in the layout. Probably more passenger work than anybody locally that I ever run on. Okay, so here we see Brian. He's working the east end He's the East End Yard Master. When I did the other one, I called this the West End, but of course it's got to be the East End if it goes down and ends up in
Is it-
Canada. It can't be the West End, so I made that mistake. But he will get on the right. You see the card box. If you look up at the top of the card box, the one that stands out is the Ann Arbor train. So in comes a train in. He looks at each one of his car cards. It'll tell you where it goes. If it goes to the Ann Arbor, he'll put it on track number 2. If it's going to the C&O interchanger, he's going to put it on track 3. And there's more tracks than that. That's just a sample of it. If it turns out that it's going to go west, this could be a train coming up from Windsor. It's going further west. It'll go to the West End Yard Master, who will put it on a train. He is almost exactly the same thing down there. He has boxes of that. When the train comes in, he shuffles the cars to the proper track. So to make up a train, you say you want to make up the Ann Arbor interchanger, and it says you want 5 cars. You just go to this box number 2, and by rights, you pull the back 5 cards, put them on one of the tracks, and get a caboose on it. So there are 5 main tracks in the middle of the yard, and that's where the trains are made up. Now, track number 1 has a train on it, and when I made this picture, I should have turned this over so we could have seen what train it was. But since it's on track 1, it was probably made up by the East End station master. If it was made up on the West End, he would probably use track number 5. The middle 2 tracks we try to keep them open as much as we can because you got passenger trains coming through the yard. And obviously track number 3 is the best to run a train in and out. But it's possible to have 2 trains coming in at the same time or going out at the same time. I don't think Bob is on here, and I know that Brian is not on here. So Greg, I'm hoping that you can tell us a little bit about this, how your experience is. But before you start, you see this, here's Jerry in the background back here, and here's that ore train that we talked about, the number 1 train. That's the ore train that he's running right there. But Greg, this was Greg's first train.
Yep. So
Greg,
that's,
you go ahead. I'll be quiet.
yeah, in the first segment last week, Ron showed this Fort Street industrial area, which includes the barge, and it's accessed as you go around the bend from that large yard in Detroit. You take your train off the main and you back it in. There you can see the train backing in. You back under that industrial building and you actually come out on the other side. There's a mirror on the ceiling, so you can see what you're doing when you're on the other side, because you wind up using that as a lead to this industrial area. And there's a couple of there's 2 plants there for steel, I think. There is the Sister Lake Southern. There you go. There's the so there's a copper and steel plant 1 and 2. There's the freight house, and then the barge slip. I did not have any work on the barge slip, but there's also a team track, and you basically then have you have, I think, 4 boxes there. There are set outs, pickups, off spot, and hold. And so basically, you got your work cut out for you there. You look at what you're picking up. You've got the waybills for the cars on your train, and you figure out what you got to do to get the cars in and out where they belong. Once you've done all that, which takes 20 or 30 minutes probably to get all that done, then you put your train back together, and you got to make sure you're facing the right direction, which I didn't do the first time. so that you could get back to Detroit. So I was on my way, I guess it would be west, and when I needed to go east. So I pulled back in there and move things around. And of course, like it's very realistic. It's an industrial area, and you have only so much room, so you run out of room real quickly. So you got to be careful what you're doing. That was the I managed to move things around pretty efficiently. But having my locomotive on the wrong end of the train and my caboose on the wrong end of the train, that took a little work to get it back in there and get that turned around. But I managed, and it was a lot of fun. And so it's a fun train to run, especially if you like switching.
Yeah, Greg, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to needle you a little bit that you're not supposed to back your train in. You're supposed to turn your train around as
Yeah,
you go in there,
right.
and the same when you go out, which causes you some problems, because you got to run around the train, and sometimes the train is too long to run around. In your case, you had 2 cars going in, but I've seen 5 or 6 cars going in, and you just don't have any room.
Yeah.
Has anybody else run that besides Greg?
I have a couple times.
I've done it.
Do you have anything to add to it?
No, I made the same mistake Greg did, but I worked it out. I ran around my train though on the other side, on the incoming side of the wall.
Okay, so we'll move on here to Jackson. Jackson's a very busy place. We get a lot of things coming in for the passengers. They have a diner that changes here, ends, stops here, REA cars, baggage cars. You can see there's a number of industries there. The Bendix Corporation, for example, holds, I don't know, something like 5 or 6 cars inside that building. I mean, you go in there, you get it, you look at your cards, you say, gee, look at those. I got all these cards to be removed from Bendix. Where can they be? Well, you go in there, and the next thing you know, you're pulling out a long string of cars out of there.
Yeah.
There's also an engine servicing area, because this is the one on the layout area that has a way freight that's going to leave Jackson and go do work somewhere else and then come back to Jackson. It will never come into the main Detroit yard as a passenger train that I will never see. So it's a different town than any of the other towns. It's really the probably the biggest town on the layout, out on the layout itself. Anybody have ever worked Jackson?
Yes, I've worked Jackson.
I have too.
Good. Well, I'll show you some more pictures of Jackson. So this card indicates what you to do. And so, take the cars for Jackson on track 2 and switch them into the Jackson Industries, pick up the cars from the industries that are in the industrial pickup box, put the westbound cars on the west end of track 1 and the eastbound cars on the east end of track 1 for a mainline train going through. And that's the box I show you down there that says mainline trains. So you've got the drop-off ones. That would be where a train comes in and you're dropping off cars for Jackson or for the other 2 towns, which would be Albia and Parma, and you put them in that box. Then you pick up, you have, you can pick up some cars there for your train. So if you're eastbound, why you pick up the required number of cars to fill out your train. Here's one of the trains that come and go out of Jackson. It goes over to the Grand Rapids staging. It will stop in Albion and Parma along the way. And at this point, you see the engine without the baggage car. That talks about putting the baggage car on the train. So the Wolverine Grand Rapids section, when it pulls in, it will have a work to do. The clips are your locomotive clips. They tell you what number of the locomotive and what the locomotive address is. And the Parma Albion turn, which is really a way freight. And it is a busy little way freight because when you get to Parma, you saw it the other day, Parma doesn't have a lot of industries, but Albion does. And Albion is also where our trains to Fort Wayne and Battle Creek interchange with the Fort Wayne trains. And it's also a narrow aisle. So it's a kind of a congested area. So we'll move up to Ann Arbor. Now, Ann Arbor is a railroad in itself. Up here in this area here, this goes back behind. You can't get to it. It's totally closed in. There's enough room here for 2 trains in here. So you'll pull one train out. So now you got a train that's filling all this up. Oh, and guess what? All these other tracks are all filled up.
Yep.
So apparently somebody has worked Albion. I don't hear anybody.
It's
I
quite
worked it.
interesting.
Hello.
I
Yeah.
would say, go ahead.
I said it's quite interesting because there's not any room to work there.
Yep.
I'm doing okay.
Yeah, Alan's talking there. I've worked Ann Arbor. I always found it kind of an interesting
Some
town.
practice, how the time trials go.
But you know, you luckily you can work there 4 hours almost if you're slow. They kind of like to keep track of how many hours you work there. I guess somebody set the record for an hour and a half. I don't know who he was, but I think he might have cheated. I'm not sure you can do it otherwise. So here's a picture of Ann Arbor. We saw it before. Chuck is running Ann Arbor on Sunday, and you can see how full everything is. And he's got to figure out how to get those cars around there to all those industries with way too many cars for to do it.
Pain.
Well, and the big issue is in the back there at the back, there's several of them that have to be in the right sequence. You got to plan it all out right.
Well, that's right. I'll run this track here. This track right back here
Yeah.
has at least 4 industries on it.
Right.
So you have to get the cars all in the right order to get them to those industries.
It just adds to the fun of things.
Yes. Of
It
course,
does.
the first thing is you got to pull the cars out that are pickups.
Mhm. Yep, it's a thinking man's game. You have to process through in your head or on a scratch pad before you start physically moving stuff. So,
That's exactly right. Well,
Mhm.
most people probably scratch it out in their head. And I know when I did it, I probably made about a dozen wrong moves that I had to redo.
and we've got to remember the real crews, when they worked the same town every day, day after day after day, they pretty much knew what moves they had to make first each time they arrived based on what they had in their switch list. And
Right.
so they had that all worked out before they even got there. And they knew what they were going to pull first, where they're going to put it out of the way, et cetera. Those of us who come up, if I'd been to this session last weekend, I would have been cold, never having seen the railroad. And I would have had to spend 10 minutes standing there studying the track and where was I going to put what before I even moved the car.
Yeah, I don't think Chuck is on here, but Chuck did the same thing. He studied everything out and then he started moving cars.
Mhm.
I'm kind of the other way around. I start moving cars and then I figured, oh, I didn't do that right. Okay. So now I'm going to just pick up a few trains as they went around the layout. The first one is a meat train coming by. And I retyped that because you really can't read the card. But it is a meat train that comes out of Battle Creek. It goes to Detroit. There's action taken by the West End yardmaster, and then it goes to Fort Wayne. So what happens is he exchanges 3 reefers With reefers on the icing track, it's the end of the in and out track 5. And then there's 3 stock cars that the West End yard master must dig out and give him. That gives the guy at the West End lots of, I'll call it operating troubles because if you don't have everything all set up and know when that meat train's coming in, it can really foul up your yard.
Mhm.
You know, you really get, you're so involved with the meat train, and here comes another passenger train. Oh, here comes another one the other way. And you're trying to get out of their way and get these cars ready for the guy on the meat train. Over on the right is one of the Doodlebug cars. It's one that leaves Ann Arbor, goes up to Mutt. And then, of course, there'll be one from Mutt going back. Jerry Peterson did get on there. Jerry, you need to tell us about Mutt. I got a feeling he doesn't have his audio on. Okay, coming
No,
through,
he's muted, so.
yeah, coming through Chelsea is a coal train, unit coal train. And there's the card for the unit coal train. Unit trains like this won't do any switching along the way. You know, they'll start off at one point and they'll go to the other point. Over here on the right, he does have operating signals on the road there. Unfortunately, that poor guy in that kind of aqua car has been there about 14 hours now waiting to get it clear across. Now, this train has a lot of work to do. It's the DB 101. I'm not sure I can totally describe it all, but it's going to come in, it's going to do work in Jackson and Albion, and it's also going to, pardon me, I'm confusing here. DB 101 does not go to the Ford part. That's this other train. That's the Westbound Mta. DB 101 is a main line train that picks up a lot of cars and drops off a lot of cars in Jackson and Albion. He doesn't do any other switching. He just pick up and drop off. The Westbound Mty is a busy train. I numbered the cards. There's 4 cards there together that tries to tell you exactly how to do it. It can be difficult to work if you've never done it before. Has anybody ever done the Ford turn? Well, you should request it. It's an interesting train. And there's the owner sitting there relaxing while we all struggle along. But it
I
was
think
all
he's
good
sleeping. It
fun.
looks like he fell asleep.
He may not be there, but he might sometime. And I'm afraid that's the end of it.
Very good. Very
Wonderful, yeah.
You know, if you watch it on YouTube, why you can look at some of these things in a little more detail. I went through it pretty fast. But,
Yeah, and
some trains, that's a lot of stuff going on.
well, so that's a great taste of it that Ron just gave us, but there are other industrial areas. I mean, we'd be here for 2 hours if Ron was going to try to go through all of it, I think. So there's a lot there, and it's pretty realistic, I think. I mean, I think Dwayne's done a really nice job of just creating this whole ecosystem around the Ford plants and everything that has to go into that, the steel, the ore, all the different contributing industries, and it's really something.
One of the things that they did when they started to build this, they went to these towns and they actually looked around and, what was there? What kind of industry was there? And they made a lot of notes and things like that. That's why, as far as I know, every industry you see on here probably is in that town.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great stuff.
Yep.
So is this layout done for now?
Well, he is in the process of buying a house, but he's had some setbacks. And it looks like the house that they ultimately want to buy won't happen until next spring.
Oh, my.
If that's the way it is, he'll probably be operating through the winter. And he is operating 2 days a month now. He operates on the first Friday and the second Sunday.
Ron, where is he?
It's Sister Lakes, Michigan.
Oh, that's the actual name of the town. Oh,
Well, there's a village there. Sister Lakes is a group of lakes. I don't know, maybe Rod can tell us better. I think there's about 5 lakes there.
It's a resort community. It's very populated in the summer and quieter in the winter with year-round people.
Mhm.
is it north of Fort Wayne? Give me an idea.
Go
It's
straight.
east of Benton Harbor
Yeah.
and north of the state line.
Just
Yeah, it goes
south of-
up off M140.
Yeah, south of
Okay.
Waterville.
Yeah, south of
Got it.
Waterville,
Okay, I see.
Mhm.
kind of northwest of the Wajak.
Now, you said he's looking at new houses. Is he planning to relocate the layout, or is it coming down and being just done away with?
Well, he used to do Tomar. He's the originator of
Right.
Tomar.
Yep.
And so he still has a factory building, which he's completely retired from building it, manufacturing.
Oh, my
Yeah.
gosh, I've talked to him so much.
Yeah.
He and
I
his
know
wife
I've-
are two great people.
Yeah, he plans on storing the layout there, but I think he will use the steel mill and the River Rouge part. And he talked about maybe rebuilding an area to Jackson. So,
Okay.
he's old enough to retire, but he still has a lot of pep and energy left.
If he's retired, what's he doing with Alexander?
Alexander's been sold to the same people that bought Tomar.
Omar?
That's a company
Oh.
out in Washington.
Okay.
Mhm.
Precision Scales got it.
At the moment, I
I
can't think.
think it's somebody separate unless something's happened recently.
Well, it's in Pasco, Washington.
Yeah, it's the same company. They all went to the same company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I
Okay.
have to convince them to do a little bit of brass etching on some of the parts they were making for that little hook crane. He wouldn't do it. And I told him, I said, go to a high school that does CAD work and have a CAD drawing made by some high school kid. And let's get this thing so you don't have to put those stupid X braces on. God, I hate that.
I built that, only I used the X braces. I made them out of brass.
I did too. Yeah.
Everybody's invited to come up here, and I know you guys from Iowa and a long ways away won't have an opportunity because it's so far. But if you live close, why, he enjoys having people come, and you can get a hold of me for information on how to do it, how to come. You feel comfortable with a mask, please wear a mask. Some people do wear a mask, other people don't. And if you're not comfortable, then you need to be comfortable. That's the key to that.
I'm thinking I saw it once a number of years ago when I was visiting Larry Smith.
You
That-
probably did, because Larry Smith was very close, and Larry used to be the mutt operator. When we rebuilt mutt, we put up a step there, and Larry was having troubles getting on and off the step without falling down. And he just gave up and said, you know what, I'm done.
Mhm.
Larry Smith's wife has completely cleaned the basement out. We did that last year,
Wow. Yep.
and everything is gone. We just finished the Don Cope, his layout. I think one guy is going to go down and actually take the layout, but we're done trying to do any more sales on it.
Yep. So,
All right, well, Ron, thank you very much for preparing these past 2 weeks. I think next week for Thanksgiving, we'll take the week off. And then I think we'll be into December then. I think that's December 2nd, if I have my dates right. And we do not have anybody scheduled yet. So if you're interested, let me know. We've got let me just check my calendar here so I tell everybody right. The 2nd will stay at the same time, which is 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. And then on the 9th, we'll return to our 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern normal time. And I'm not taking any more classes until next fall potentially. So that should stay through the spring and summer at least. All right.
Hey,
yep.
Everybody have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks again for coming. Thank you very much, Ron, for preparing these 2 weeks, and we'll see you in December.
good show, Ron.
Thanks,
All right.
Ron.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.